Hey, welcome back. I'm Hession, and what we're going to talk about today is something awful and hard to pronounce: Hyperemesis Gravidarum. Hi, this is Hession. I'm a medical intuitive and energy healing practitioner. And today I'm going to talk with you about Hyperemesis Gravidarum, Hyperemesis Gravidarum. And if you are having trouble saying Hyperemesis Gravidarum, no worries, because what it really means is just really bad pregnancy nausea, or also called morning sickness. Literally, it's from the Greek. Hyper meaning excessive, emesis meaning vomiting, and the Latin gravidarum meaning pregnant women. So it literally means excessive vomiting of pregnant women. For the purposes of insurance and medical diagnoses, doctors will distinguish between what's seen as normal pregnancy nausea and what merits a diagnosis of hyperemesis gravidarum. But it really comes down almost completely just to severity. Hyperemesis gravidarum tends to be what gets diagnosed when pregnancy nausea is so severe and constant and long-lasting that the poor mama can't keep hardly anything down at all, even water. So dehydration can become a big problem. There's concern for the nutritional welfare of both the mother and the developing fetus, and you're also more likely to get that diagnosis if the nausea lasts past 15 weeks or so. Since for most women dealing with pregnancy nausea, it does tend to clear up as you move into the second trimester. Sometimes with hyperemesis gravidarum, hospitalization may even be required, specifically for IV fluids for dehydration. So what causes it, and what causes it to be so severe and debilitating that it's just ruining your pregnancy? You may want to watch my What Causes Morning Sickness video as well, but I will do a brief recap of that here. From a Western medical perspective, the answer is nobody knows. The current most common thought is that it may have to do with the hormone human chorionic gonadotropin, or HCG, and that's based on the fact that levels of this hormone are usually higher in the first trimester, which is when most pregnant women are experiencing nausea. So there's a theory there may be a cause and effect there, but no one's actually been able to prove whether or not HCG is causing the nausea. So if medical science doesn't yet have an answer about this, does energy healing have an explanation? Well, yes, I'm so glad you asked. It does. Energy healing is coming from a very different paradigm than the Western medical paradigm, and both paradigms have great value in my view. But in my experience, in the case of pregnancy nausea and its evil cousin, hyperemesis gravidarum, it happens that the energy healing paradigm has more to offer, both in terms of explanation and, more importantly, in terms of effective ways to get it to stop. So you may want to watch my What is Energy Healing video for more details on that, but the super short version is that energy healing is a general term that can refer to many different types of healing modalities, and what they have in common is they're working with the subtle energies of the body to unblock, strengthen, and support the body's own natural healing processes. From an energy healing perspective, the actual underlying cause of both normal pregnancy nausea and the more pernicious hyperemesis gravidarum is exactly the same. It's just a matter of degree. The nausea is the result of what we could best describe as disconnection, lack of full communication and working together between the mother and the developing fetus, and or the fetus's support system, which is of course the placenta, the amniotic fluid, and the umbilical cord. So the mother's nervous system in particular is not fully recognizing these things as being something that should be there. And so it's kind of reacting to their presence like a foreign invader to some extent. And that is what it feels like, isn't it? You know, your body starts to just become this battlefield that's playing out. So what do I mean by that? Well, think about this. The developing fetus and the placenta, the cord, and the fluid are not normally tissue that is in your body, right? They're not something that's there all the time, like your liver and your spleen. And while your body is producing them, it's also true that they are in some sense what you could call foreign tissue. And so the mother's body is in conflict. It's having to deal with and work with these invaders, and at the same time, it's thinking that something isn't right. This shouldn't be this way. And that constant state of conflict and stress seems to be the actual underlying cause for the nausea. And if you think about that, it also makes sense why pregnancy nausea usually does end up going away on its own at some point during the pregnancy. Essentially, at some point along the way, in most cases, the connections do finally happen on their own and the harmony is restored. But as we all know, it doesn't always happen on its own, and it never, ever, ever happens fast enough in the view of the poor vomiting mom. So the disconnection issue is the real underlying cause for both the milder, fairly common morning sickness or pregnancy nausea, as well as for severe cases, which may end up getting diagnosed as hyperemesis gravidarum. The difference is simply a matter of degree. The more severe the nausea, the more separate disconnections are present that need to be identified and then reconnected. So, what do I mean by different disconnections? So, let me explain that. There are a bunch of different players here, and so the number of possible different disconnections depends on how many different things there are to get disconnected. There's actually several dozen different possible disconnections that can be present underlying all that stress and conflict that's causing the nausea between the mother's brain and the rest of the body, and also her spirit on one hand, and then the fetus or baby itself, the placenta, the amniotic fluid, the umbilical cord, and you have each of those four things in both the physical and the energetic realms. So you can see there's a lot of possible combinations. But in my experience, helping lots of pregnant women with this issue, by far the most common disconnections that are almost always present with pregnancy nausea are disconnections between the mother's brain, her nervous system, and the fetus itself, the placenta, the cord, and the amniotic fluid. So the most common issue is this basic one of the mother's nervous system reacting to each of these as something foreign rather than as something welcome and natural. So then the question becomes, well, what's causing the darned disconnections, and how do we get everything connected so I can stop throwing up nearly every 5 minutes and enjoy my darn pregnancy? So that's a great question. As an energy healer, and in particular as a practitioner of a healing modality called the body code, which was developed by Dr. Bradley Nelson, and which is the only healing modality I know of that can quickly address and fix these disconnections, I find the underlying energy imbalances that are preventing the normal, natural connections from being there. I clear those imbalances away, and then everything can connect back up the way that it's supposed to be, the way it was designed. And when you do that, the nausea just disappears, doesn't need to be treated, it's gone because there's nothing left causing it. Now, the single most common type of energetic imbalance that's underlying these disconnections are trapped, stuck emotional baggage from the past that we're still carrying around with us. These trapped emotions are little balls of energy, they're stuck in your body, and they create imbalances. They can cause health problems, they affect our organs, they can cause us to get stuck in negative, unhealthy patterns in our lives, and they create these disconnections. For example, let's say you have some stuck, trapped emotional baggage in your relationship with your mother. Certainly plenty of women who have a great relationship with their mother can also have pregnancy nausea. This is just one example, but when there is a lot of conflict and baggage with your own mother, very often I find that will be some of the trapped energy that's causing these disconnections between you and your baby. And it makes sense, right? So how you clear the disconnections is by finding and releasing this trapped emotional baggage from the past. And in some cases, there may be other types of energy imbalances as well as the emotional. But the trapped emotions are by far the biggest factor. Now, the process of finding and clearing away these imbalances and restoring the connection between you and your baby is going to be covered more in my next video, Natural Treatment for Hyperemesis Gravidarum. So I hope that was helpful and give you a better understanding of what can be causing severe nausea, including to the diagnosis of hyperemesis gravidarum in pregnancy. Feel free to check out some of the other videos that I recommended or go to the website and find out more.